Hello, Simple Practice. Thank you for being here. I love all the chat, everyone introducing themselves from wherever it is that you hail from. And it's so great to see everyone here. Thank you for spending some time with us today. Hopefully this will be valuable for you and we'll really cover a lot of ground, specifically as it relates to our AI Note Taker product, but really answering any questions you have. And that is the main reason for us being here today. I have a bunch of colleagues that will be joining me here. But first, I wanted to cover off on a little bit of logistics, just to make sure that everyone has a great experience as a part of the live stream today. First of all, my name is Doug Scott. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at SimplePractice, and I'm really, really glad that you're spending some time with us today. So with that, let's dive into the meat of the live stream today. And the goal of this live stream, some of you, I've seen some questions already asking, is this the same as past live streams that we've done? This is the first time that we've done a live stream since Note Taker has gone to general availability. So there's a lot of people who are actively using it, may have questions specifically about different use cases that you've encountered as you've gone along. There will be others that are considering it, haven't used it. And so they will be interested in just how does this thing work and some other considerations like that. So we're going to try to walk the line between those two things as we go along. And hopefully there are some updates. So it's not the same as the past ones. There's lots for us to talk about that we weren't able to talk about or show in the last live stream we did on this product, which was several months ago. And the team's been hard at work and launching a lot of great new features. So we'll make sure to cover that today. And without that, I will remind you again, please put those questions into Q&A. That's where we want them. And then that way you can upload them and make sure that you get the questions that you want answered. So with that, let's bring all of our panelists up on stage and we'll do a quick round of intros and then we'll get right into the subjects for the live stream today. And here they come. All right. They're rolling in. Lots of good folks. Awesome. So some of these people may seem familiar to you. You may have seen some of them in prior live streams here. So, but we will introduce everyone going around the horn. I will throw it to people just for simplicity's sake. So, Allie, why don't you start and introduce yourself? Just a couple of sentences real quickly about who you are, what you do here at SimplePractice.
Great. Thanks so much. Hey, everyone. It's nice to see you all here. Thanks for being here. I'm Allie Hurley. I'm the Chief Legal Officer here at SimplePractice, and I lead our legal, compliance, privacy, cybersecurity, and fraud teams. I'm privileged to work behind the scenes to create the secure foundation that supports your life-changing work with clients. Truly, my passion comes from knowing that every privacy protection that we implement and every compliance hurdle that we navigate directly empowers you to focus on what truly matters, and that's helping your clients heal and grow. Thanks for being here.
Okay, well, Allie, thank you. So next up, we'll go with Tony. Let's try Tony Lee and see how this one goes.
Oh, wow. I feel like the guinea pig here. But well, thanks, Doug. Great to be here with all of you. Thank you for coming. And thank you for bringing your questions and concerns. I'm Tony Lee. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at SimplePractice, responsible for our technology infrastructure, for product development, as well as the AI technology decisions that we're making. So I'm ready for those questions as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. We'll be able to troubleshoot this and everything will come online shortly. Next up is Dr. Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Lindsay Oberleitner. I am a clinical psychologist, and I am the head of clinical strategy here at SimplePractice, making sure there's a clinical voice throughout decisions that we make here. Really excited to get to talk with you all today.
Thank you, Lindsay. Alan, you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. Excited to see everyone here. My name is Alan Roth. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at SimplePractice, and I get to partner really closely with many folks across the organization, including our product team and clinicians such as yourself, to help shape the products and services that we offer. And so super excited to be here and chat with everyone here.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. And last but not least, Jim, who just ducked off stage and then right back on. Welcome back, Jim. Hopefully your mic is working. Let's see how this goes.
It is. Can you hear me?
I got you loud and clear.
Perfect. Hey,
Chat
everyone.
will let us know if they can't hear you.
Yeah, they will. I am Jim Plaskanka. I'm a product manager here at SimplePractice, and I am in the Cleveland, Ohio area where the weather is finally starting to be decent. Thanks all for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's dive in. I want to set some just a basic understanding of, some of you may not have experienced this tool. You probably, many of you probably didn't see our prior live streams on this, so you may not know a little bit about how we think about going about developing this tool and AI in general. But I thought, Dr. Lindsay, maybe we could just jump in with you really quickly to give us a clinician's perspective on AI and how that's informed our approach to developing AI here at SimplePractice.
Awesome. And hopefully everyone can hear me now as well. So, as we think about developing AI at SimplePractice, it's really important to us to ensure that we are, one, consistently getting feedback from customers, getting feedback, getting opportunities to talk to clinicians across various areas of the field and ensuring we're meeting needs. We want to make sure that we really take a practitioner-centered approach, that at the core of what we do is data security, clinical accuracy, and integrity, and that all of those things are really core to anything we do in the development of AI. One of the things that we find most important to make sure that we share and that really directs us is that we strongly believe that trained practitioners are really the center of clinical care. And what we want to do is continue to build tools that help day-to-day workflows, that help ease those burdens, not ever as a replacement, right? So our goal is that this is a practice enhancer, not something that substitutes all the training and expertise of everyone who's on this call today with us. And our mission is ultimately to help clinicians thrive. We want AI as another tool that helps support you, not as, not as something that interferes with your practice, brings things in you don't want, but actually helps you and your practice thrive in the way that you need support. Additionally, we've taken a careful approach to this. We don't want to rush. We've been thoughtful about our approach to AI. Again, continuing to try to get feedback from all of you as often and in as many ways as possible to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. We're not trying to rush, we're trying to build it the right way the first time. One of the other things that's really pushed us in this direction with wanting to build something like Note Taker is we know that it's grown pretty rapidly in both the medical and mental health fields, the use of AI. I see a little bit that I'm choppy. Hopefully other people are hearing me well, but please stop me, anyone on stage too. We know that, for example, the American Medical Association said that in 2024, over 60% of physicians were using AI, which was an 80% increase from 2023 to 2024. Now that's in the medical field, and it's been slower within behavioral health. But we do know that in 2024, over 20% of mental health professionals did report using AI in their practice. So our goal is ultimately that we want you to have the tools integrated into the EHR so that you have full accessibility to the tools that you choose to use. When we see those numbers growing, we want to make sure that we are integrating what you need as well. So with that, I will pass it back to Doug.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. And obviously, we want to give an overview of how it works. Technically, there's been questions about HIPAA compliance and things like that we're going to get into lots of depth on for sure. But at a high level, I was hoping that Tony could just give us an overview of how the product works. There was a ton of questions that came in about this, like how does it work? Just want an overview, explain how it integrates with my workflow, things like that. Jim is going to give us a demo in a second that's going to go into a lot of depth. You'll be able to see it if you haven't seen it already. And hopefully it'll maybe explain some things if you're already using it that you might be able to do with the product as well. But Tony can give us a high-level overview just to set that, and then we'll jump into some questions, then we'll jump into a demo. Again, please put those questions into the Q&A tab. That's where, and then if you don't have a question, go over there and upvote what you do want to hear us answer, because we will try to get to all of those as soon as we can. Tony, why don't you give us a little overview from a product and technical standpoint?
Sure, Doug. I'll keep it fairly high level and short because Jim is going to give us more details in his section. But what we do, and to actually respond to some of the questions also in the chat, is we take a recording of your session, and this can be either in person through the phone application or through a telehealth session. So we support both modes. We generate a transcription of that session, and then we do use AI to take that transcription and generate a draft note. This note is draft. It'll come back to you. Again, going back to what Lindsay had said about keeping the practitioner as core and central to the experience. It's up to you to edit it, to view it, to review it, and also to approve it, finally. Once that is done, as soon as we generate the transcription, we do delete the recording. And when the transcription and the note has been signed and locked, we do delete the transcription as well today.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. We will, as I mentioned, we're going to go into a lot more depth about the product here too. So I figured just to sort of get the flow going in this, we would answer some questions. There's a lot of questions being thrown into chat. Please throw those into the Q&A tab if you can. And I'm going to take a real quick section here for a public service announcement as well of a couple of things that are other resources for you. We have a weekly live Q&A with our customer success team, specifically on this product. You can join that. You can find it in the docs tab. There's a link to the next session. That's very product focused, like how do I do these things? How do I get it set up? Some of those questions, less about some of the questions about like ethical AI or environmental impact or other things that people might be interested in. But that's available to you. That happens on a weekly basis. The next one is on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific. So please feel free to sign up for that. There's also a continuing education course about AI tools that Dr. Lindsay put together that is available to you for free. And there's a link to that as well in the docs tab. So there's lots of resources to help you navigate this as we go along. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have a wonderful community on Facebook. It's the SimplePractice community there. It is an amazing place where clinicians are helping each other solve for all manners of different issues as relates to building a thriving practice. And I really encourage you to go sign up for that, be a part of it. It's a place where we spend a lot of time as well trying to understand what's going on with the community. And it's a really wonderful group of people helping one another out there. So I encourage you to go there as well. Lots of note taker talk in there as well. So with that said, I want to hand it off to Jim, and we are going to, and Dr. Lindsay, they're both going to take us through I'm sorry, we're not going there yet. We're going to go to questions. I said we were going to go to Q&A, so we will go to Q&A. In fact, I'm going to take what's the top voted question right now from Mary Kirby. I'm going to share it on the screen here, and we are going to have our first question. So this is live from the audience. Thank you, Mary, for your question. It is, what is being fed to the AI to teach it? Is it contained to SimplePractice? Tony, why don't you take a crack at this one?
Oh, yeah, happy to. And I know this is a concern for many. So let me just go into a little detail of what I just said in terms of, we take the transcript and we use a large language model to generate the draft note. And a little bit more detail there is that we are using a commercial large language model. And I think I can disclose that it's Claude from Anthropic. We base that on quality, but also Anthropic has a strong statement around environmental respect and ethical AI, which we can get into more detail later. But what we don't do is we don't send it to the company Anthropic. We actually have a private instance that is kept within our secure environment. So it's within our HIPAA compliant environment. It's a secure instance. We send your transcript as context, not as training material. It's context to go get generate the note for us, or generate the draft note for us. And the model will do that. But it doesn't save the actual transcript. So it's never used for learning, for teaching. It actually has no memory of it at all. And again, this is within our own environment, so it's not shared with other vendors either. So that's why we don't use it to teach any commercial models. And the commercial vendor, Anthropic in this case, never actually sees it at all.
Thanks, Tony. Next question, and we're going to do just 3 of these questions, and we'll dive into the demo. Amber, I saw your question there to please get into the demo. Understood. So the question here from Rose, thank you, Rose, is what changes do I need to make to informed consent document if using AI Note Taker that records. Ali, I think I'm going to throw it to you here to answer this. Obviously, this is, I believe, a state-by-state question probably, but maybe you can provide some guidance here. Ali, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, got you loud and clear now.
I guess there's maybe a little bit of lag there. Thanks so much. Yeah, and I'll ask Lindsay to also weigh in here as well. But yeah, with respect to like the pure legal requirements related to informed consent, you know, let me back up a little bit and say like we are very heavily tracking AI laws across the United States and how they're coming out. It's like a rapidly changing regulatory and legal framework, so we're keeping a very close eye on it. As of today, there is no state that specifically requires a written informed consent document to be signed for the use of AI in particular. That being said, you know, we are seeing a lot of laws and a lot of ethical guidelines, and this is where Lindsay should weigh in around having those conversations with your clients and making sure they are informed that you are using AI as part of your practice if you do choose to use this feature. In addition to sort of the general sort of transparency that we're going to promote, we are going to be providing you with tools to help guide those conversations with your clients so that you are informed and you are able to inform them about what the use of AI looks like in your practice. Additionally, there are a number of states that require consent in order to audio record. It's different state by state, and so I definitely recommend that you make sure you understand the state laws in the state that you practice. But some states do require what's called an all-party consent, which means that every person who's a party to that audio recording needs to consent to being recorded. And we have developed a form, a template consent form for you for the audio recording. And we definitely recommend that you make sure that you're tracking that and making sure that it complies with your state. Lindsay, I'll let you add anything.
Thank you, Ali. And I'll just briefly add, so as Ali mentioned, I mean, many of our ethical principles across do require that we have these conversations, right? Which is different than, as Ali mentioned, having that formal signed consent. So we will make sure we're continuing to develop more and more tools to make sure you have the information you need, which is ensuring you can answer the questions about the product to the level of knowledge that your clients may be asking about these pieces of information. So we want to make sure that you have that both in documents, and Ali and I both will be hosting also a follow-up live stream that'll be entirely focused on how to hold these conversations. So you will see links for that here. That will be in August. But we will continue to develop those tools so that you can answer, because obviously what we know from our principles, being able to be transparent and provide informed consent on something means you have the knowledge and info you need as well. So we are very aware and looking for continuous ways to improve that for you.
Awesome. Thanks to you both. Okay, one more question before we jump in, and then we'll dive into the live demo. The next question comes to us from Emily Sachs. Thank you for your question. It is, how secure is this technology? Anything beyond HIPAA compliance level to assure clients that recordings will not be accessed by third parties? So Tony talked a little bit about this already, but Tony, do you want to dive into a little bit more on some of the security tactics from a technical standpoint that are in place here? And then, Ali, I mean, if you want to clarify a little bit about the level of security and as that relates to what's being recorded, perhaps we could touch on that as well.
Right. So before handing over to Ali, I will also add that if the recording does stay within our secured environment, and HIPAA compliance is one thing, we also have PCI compliance, and we're also audited regularly by third parties that we're a secure environment. And so we have multiple levels of security around this. The recordings are encrypted and they're access controlled rigorously. Anything with PHI, we don't let the vast majority of the company have access to it, only really when you need to get for a valid reason with your consent. So we have layers of security in front of it from a technology perspective to prevent unnecessary access. Ali?
Yeah, I can just give a teeny bit more detail, but just sort of stepping back a little bit, we do believe that ethical AI starts with putting you in control. And because of that, we're committed to transparency, privacy, protecting your data at every step of the way. Our platform is HIPAA compliant and has always been, and that does not change with Note Taker or with the launch of any AI features. And I also wanted to add that we have been certified through HITRUST, which is a third-party assessor that verifies the strictest level of HIPAA compliance. And our Note Taker feature is HIPAA compliant and has been certified as such. Now, it might help a little bit to add, give a little bit more detail about what exactly it means to be HIPAA compliant. And really what that means is that we implement robust technical, physical, and administrative safeguards to protect your data, your client's data, and their sensitive health information from unauthorized access and disclosure. And this includes, any data transmitted through our platform is encrypted, as Tony mentioned, in both transit and at rest. Our platform is role-based, which means that, based on the jobs that they do, they have different levels of access within the platform. And we also keep detailed audit logs of who's asked us what information and when, helping us really demonstrate compliance during this period. So happy to answer any other questions if needed.
Awesome. Well, we've answered a few questions now, but I encourage you to add more to the Q&A tab. Go over there and upvote the ones that are there. If you find something that's interesting, we will come back to this tab in a second after we've had a chance to go through it. And now, without further ado, I will bring up Jim and Dr. Lindsay. And we have a special guest joining us as well. This is Dr. Aaron Weiner, who's joining us from Chicago area. He's a board-certified psychologist. He's an addiction specialist and the executive vice president of the Prevention Research Institute. And we are very honored to have you here today, Dr. Weiner. Thank you for joining us and bringing your perspective to the mix.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to mute and I'm going to let you all take it away and show us this great product.
Hey, Aaron. Hey, Lindsay. Thank you guys for joining today. Aaron, would you, I know Doug gave a quick intro already, but anything else you'd like to add there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm based outside Chicago. I saw a couple of people say you're from there in the chat. Fantastic to see that representation. I specialize in addiction, specifically a little bit in trauma, and I'm a bit of a tech geek and have been really excited to try out Note Taker. I've been thinking very critically about AI and the future of behavioral health, and I was just so excited to have the opportunity to try it out and then talk with everybody about it today.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. And I know we'll chat more in just a few minutes. So for those of you who might be new to Note Taker, let me start with a quick overview. And Tony already touched on a lot of this, but just as a quick refresher. So what is Note Taker, right? Note Taker is a scribe type tool that is that uses your appointment to generate a progress note. And that's really simply it. Note Taker is available for appointments, for virtual appointments via telehealth and in-person appointments using your mobile device, so that with just the click of a button, you can start using Note Taker however you choose to meet with your clients. Note Taker works by recording the audio from your appointment and transforming that into a transcript of the conversation. And if we could, thank you. And then in addition to being able to view that transcript, Note Taker also uses it to generate a draft note, a draft progress note that is, which you can then review, make any edits to as necessary before saving and signing it. Now, thank you. Now, I mentioned in-person appointments, and that is a relatively new feature for Note Taker. So let's take a minute and watch a quick video to see how that works. For in-person appointments, you'll start by downloading the new SimplePractice Clinician app. That's the one with the yellow icon. Once you're in the new app, just go to the scheduled appointment for your client. When you open the appointment page, you'll see the Record with Note Taker button. Press that to start recording, and if necessary, you can allow the app to have access to your microphone. While you're recording, there are a few important tips to remember, like making sure you have a strong signal, either through your cellular provider or your Wi-Fi network. The placement of your mobile device is also important, making sure it's located centrally so that everyone in the appointment can be heard. While recording, you can pause and resume recording at any point, and when you're finished, just press pause and then done to get Note Taker started on your draft progress note. In just a couple of minutes, Note Taker will send you a notification that your draft progress note is ready for review. One thing that's great about this approach for in-person appointments is that it maintains the same seamless experience you're used to with telehealth. You simply start the session, stay focused on the client, and let Note Taker handle the documentation piece. And since everything is integrated, if you go to your desktop device to review the note, it's the same there as well. Now, I'd love to bring in Aaron and Lindsay again for a quick discussion about this. So, Aaron, you have already mentioned that you've been using Note Taker for a while. Can you share some of your insights and experiences since you've been using Note Taker?
Yeah. So I have a bunch, and I think we'll have a chance to talk about them over the course of the rest of the hour today. But I think the number one thing that I've found that I like about Note Taker is that I don't stress out about my notes the way that I used to. I don't know if anyone else is like this, but I don't take notes during session. I find that if I split my attention that way, it doesn't work so well for me. And then I oftentimes find myself really crushed, like at the end of the day, trying to get them done or write a skeleton, or if I don't write them same day, I go to sleep and I wake up the next day and it's not there. But just to know that it is there, that Taker has been listening, that not only will the draft be there for me when I get to it, but it'll probably be even more complete than it would have been if I was just doing it from memory. That's been fantastic.
It's really great to hear. I mean, taking that burden off of the stress of just having to create those notes, right? And I think one of the things you highlighted there, Aaron, too, was even feeling like maybe some of those details that so easily they feel like they'll stay forever. But sometimes when we go back to complete those notes, they just aren't there. So I think those are really great highlights. Are there any other pieces that you wanted to note on the kind of general experience with Note Taker?
Yeah, well, beyond just the fact that I do feel like the notes are more robust than they would be if I was just drawing from memory, there's the aspect of when you take time to do your charting. In the past, a lot of it spent composing, which at least for me isn't my favorite, like trying to pick the right words to use and then remember. I'm not so much of a writer. That's not as much my thing. And so what this allows me to do is, instead of spending the time generating, I'm spending the time editing. I get to read what's there and say, oh, wait, that's not right. Let's change that. Or, oh, there was something that was switched up and isn't quite the way that I want it to be. I like editing personally a lot more than I like just straight up composing and writing. And so that really fits my workflow. And it's just another stress reducer of the whole process.
That's a really great point. And I mean, and sometimes when we are so rushed to just get through the note and the composing, like you mentioned, it can be so hard to actually take that time to reflect back and really make sure that you have what you want and how you want it structured. Like you said, that refining stage allows you to end with that, like, note as you would want it recorded for going forward, what you need in the record. And, just to broaden it a little bit too, because I so appreciate you sharing your experience, especially as someone who doesn't like to take notes in the session, where those benefits can be. We've also heard from other people who even used to perhaps try to get those notes done during session that not only is it that shift to refining, but many people have even noted quite a bit of time savings on documentation too. So for some people like yourself, it might be a shift, right, to refining, to really reflecting on a session. For others, it might be really just reducing that burden of time if that composing really was taking you quite a bit of your day, quite a bit of your time, taking away from those breaks. So appreciate you sharing your experience, Erin, and hopefully we'll continue to hear. I love seeing some of the comments coming through the chat as well about people's experiences. But I think we'll pass back to Jim for a little bit more demo now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great insight from both of you, and thank you very much. You both kind of talked about the part of the process of refining and sort of editing the notes. One of our most recent additions to Note Taker involves personalizing the note so that the note sounds more like you would have written it, in the formats that you prefer and have used in the past. And so this next video we'll watch now focuses on the start of that personalization. Now let's visit the appointment we just had and view the note that Note Taker provided. And so we can click the Note Taker button, open that up, and we see a progress note that's written in a paragraph, just kind of a block of text. And if we take a look back at the previous appointment, and we'll just jump back here, you can see that the previous appointment was also written in this paragraph form. Now let's go back to our current session, and let's say that I no longer want my notes written this way. For any number of reasons, I changed the template I use. And let's fix this going forward so that I get exactly out of Note Taker what I want. And so what we'll do, I'm going to take all of the content from this note, put it into a different structure, exactly how I want it to be going forward. And you can make any of these other formatting changes that you want. Things like, using different pronouns, any other sort of client references, elements of your writing style, including, using quotes from the session or not using quotes. All of this will be maintained going forward on future appointments now. Okay, so you can see how Note Takers works to use previous progress notes as a starting point, and what you can do and how Note Taker sort of adapts to your style over time as well. Now that we've made changes to that note, let's watch the second part of this demo to see what the updated progress note looks like. And now let's jump forward to our next scheduled session with the same client. You can see I just completed another session with them, and Note Taker is currently generating our draft note. And you can see that now that that Note Taker has finished drafting our note, this should better align with our updated progress note, which again is in this subjective objective assessment plan or SOAP format. You can see that the objective section includes a mental status exam, as well as all of the pertinent information from the session. And we can copy this note over. And just like that, we have an improved SOAP note, or an improved progress note, in this case in a SOAP format, going forward for our client. And so this personalization means you're not just starting from scratch. You've already got a note that sounds like you wrote it and formatted the way you want it. Now let's go back to Lindsay and Aaron. Aaron, you have been using Note Taker for pretty much as long as anyone at this point. So you've gotten to experience Note Taker before and after this personalization update. What has your experience been like?
So it was like night and day, and it was also a bit of an interesting journey. I wasn't sure what to expect at the beginning, and when I saw the version 1 note say before personalization, it was very interesting because it was like someone else had written it in good ways and bad ways, where there were a lot more quotes from in session that were pulled in, and it was actually interpreting some of what I've done. It was like, did psychoeducation or cognitive reframing. It was very interesting. But part of me was a little sad because I have a way that I write notes, and I was like, oh man, all right, well, if this is the cost of progress, then all right, I'll roll with it. And maybe actually this is better. It kind of occurred to me that I haven't actually gotten supervision on my notes for about a decade now. I think it's probably true for most of us, right? So maybe there's better ways to do it. But I gave the feedback actually to the team. We had a meeting and a chat, and they asked for feedback. And I said, hey, so like I had to sacrifice my own individual style here, and it would be great if it sounded a bit more like me. And about like a week later, all of a sudden it did. And clearly this is the reason why, but now it really does feel very much like I wrote the note, including the mental status exam. I think I saw someone in the chat ask about that. It writes the MSE like I write the MSE. It can tell.
That's really great to hear. And it's really great to hear. I love hearing your reflections, Aaron, because you were part of it before and you were part of it after. So getting to hear how your experience shifted as we continue to try to make improvements to meet those needs, right? Like you said, you came and shared that feedback and changes were able to be made. I love how you also highlighted the piece that it can be really helpful to see some of the notes in other ways. And one of the other things that I've heard from other customers as well is that it's almost like this moment, some of those pieces that it does bring in, even as it integrates your voice more, it's almost giving you a reflection on your own work, right? Because what is it calling out? And is it in other ways? But I think that, one of the big improvements with this is when you mentioned earlier that the time is now spent on refinement, the hope is that over time, this means even less refinement, right? Obviously, you were always the final eyes. You were always the final kind of piece on this. But you're able to spend less time on those small changes that at least give it your voice. And like Jim mentioned, things like pronouns, even some of these things that may differ from client to client, and making sure it matches up. But I think there were a couple more things that you wanted to share with us, Jim. So I want to make sure to pass back, knowing you want to keep moving on to some questions too.
Definitely. Thank you, Lindsay and Aaron. Yeah, before we wrap up, I want to just quickly chat about a couple of the upcoming features. We're not done yet, right? So in addition to continuing to improve Note Taker, we have some exciting new features coming soon. And Lindsay, one feature I know that you're particularly excited about is dictation, which essentially lets the clinician speak to Note Taker, whether they've recorded a session or not. Do you want to chat a bit about why that's so exciting for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, as we're continuing to build, two things that we want to do is one, reduce work stream, like all of those extra burdens. So the great thing about Note Taker as is right now is it really makes it as quick as possible. But dictation means that we know there are situations where you may not be able to record for a whole lot of reasons. I know in a lot of my clinical work, I'd go into community settings and places where I may not be able to make a recording of that session, and it may not be able to automate it, but I could always use a dictation option that would then, although it's one extra step, it's a lot less of a step than having to refine and structure a note. So it can take that information from us. So I think it opens up doors for clients that maybe don't want a recording, or a particular session you don't want to use a recording for. So I think this will be a big, I hope, opportunity for many people who maybe are finding themselves in some situations not being able to use Note Taker in the way it was originally developed. So thank you, Jim. Very exciting development.
Definitely. Thank you, Lindsay. And Aaron, I know in some of our conversations leading up to this live stream today, one of the features that you were particularly excited about was pre-appointment summaries, which essentially will help, streamline that pre-appointment preparation step. Do you want to talk a little bit about your excitement for that one?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see where the field goes in terms of using AI, not just to save therapists time, but actually like make us better therapists. And I think that that's when I think about pre-appointment summaries, so like almost like a cheat sheet of like, hey, here's what you talked about last time, here's what the homework was, if any was assigned, here's some things that you might want to bring up today. Take these features that only you can do.
That's great. That's really great. Well, Aaron, Lindsay, thank you so much, both of you, for spending time on this topic today. And thanks again, everybody, for joining. And Doug, back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Weiner. Thank you, Dr. Lindsay. Thanks, Jim. Bring everybody back up on stage. But I just want to it was so great to see everyone sharing some of their experiences in the chat. And really, I think relating to some of what Dr. Weiner shared in his experience. That's really nice. And this is me being selfish for a second. It's really nice to hear that, because this is why we come to work every day, is to try to create, tools that hopefully help you and are something that, makes your lives as clinicians better. And helps you ultimately thrive in the ways that you can. And so it was really wonderful to hear that. It's really affirming. So thank you for sharing those stories in chat. And so now that I've gotten a little sappy, now we'll move on to really getting into the thick of things, because again, we appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. You've put a lot of questions into the Q&A, and we want to talk about those. That's what we're going to spend the rest of the time doing, is answering your questions. So if you haven't put your question in the chat, into the Q&A tab, please go do that, and or go upvote the questions that you most want to hear us answer. We're going to try to get through as many of them as we can, and we'll keep kind of cranking on them for as long as it seems like it makes sense. But again, thank you everyone for your time and for being here today. Okay, so with that, we're going to dive right into it. Oh, by the way, please go check out the Docs tab too. There's lots of information in there. There are future live streams. There's one on the mobile app that's coming up on 7/8. There's the August 13th user consent, client consent live stream that Dr. Lindsay and Ali will be taking people through. So there's lots of great things for you to register for coming up to provide more touch points to make sure that you're getting the most out of all these tools. So please check those out. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always here, and we'd love to hear from you. So with that, we'll dive into the questions. Okay, this is from Jane Schroeder. Thank you for your question, Jane. Will this work for custom note templates with checkboxes and pull-down menus? Jim, why don't you take a crack at answering that question?
Yes, thank you, Jane, for this question. So the short answer is yes. Note Taker will work using custom note templates. However, right now, and this is probably more what you meant, it will not fill out those individual, bubbles and pull down menus using your template as you created it, but it will create the shell of that template with the necessary information there. But custom templates is definitely an area where we will continue to look at making improvements.
Thanks, Jim. Next question from Rachel. Rachel, thanks for your question. Will you create a version that doesn't require recording the session? I dictate or I write in a summary and AI rewrites it for me. We just touched on this a little bit, but just if you want to refresh that, just as this is an official question, so I want to make sure we just touch on it and make sure that there's clarity there.
Definitely, Rachel, and yes. So the answer to this question is yes. We are exploring and actively working on a dictation feature And we will share, I saw in the chat around dates for that. We'll share more about dates in the near future as we get further along in the development process.
Next question is from Rick. Rick asked, I have heard there are some platforms that will automatically trigger a notification as a mandated reporter for any interpretation of abuse, suicide, or homicide, removing the discretion of the therapist. Will Note Taker do that? Allie, maybe this is an area for you to comment on, and Tony and or Jim, you can also comment on what the product does and how it works.
Yeah, I think Jim can certainly jump in on sort of if we have plans around this or not. But with respect to the mandatory reporter, yes, if you are a mandatory reporter in your state, you're required by law to report. Any of the subjects within the scope of that mandatory reporting law. I'm not purposely being vague, but it's different state by state and by client too. So if something does come up in a session, you are legally required to report that. And I'll sort of hand it over to Jim to talk about the product piece of it.
Yeah, and I think the important part that Allie just mentioned is that you are required to report that. Note Taker is not going to take that. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Lindsay.
I'll just add briefly that we very much see, again, clinician judgment as central to the AI products, right? So I just want to make sure that that's clear as we continue, as new features roll out related to Note Taker. Central is that you are making those ultimate judgments, even those notes and summaries. It's ultimately, we know that that goes back to you to clarify, to refine all those pieces we heard. So the same with something like this. We see this as ultimately, the note may alert you to concerns that maybe you had looked at a different way. Maybe it's summarized in a different way, but it's ultimately something that we see as clinician core and judgment.
Yeah, and you'll hear that from us time and time again, that we really want to put the clinicians in control, and these are tools that are at your disposal and your use and your discretion. So ultimately, that's the case here as well. Okay, next question is coming from Mary Lukes. Mary, thanks for your question. Are insurance companies able to request and access these notes or transcriptions without client consent and clinician awareness? Jim, do you want to talk about that? And or Allie, feel free to pop in there as well.
Yeah, so, I think based on what Tony had kind of touched on around data retention and things like that, I guess, Allie, maybe do you want to touch on with the insurance piece specifically?
Yeah, I can jump on this. Typically, an insurance company wouldn't come to us directly for requests for access to notes or transcriptions or anything like that. Typically, when an insurance company makes these types of requests, they do it to the provider, to you, to the practitioner, to either confirm something that you've submitted, or if they have questions about something, they would typically come directly to you. They're not coming directly to us. That being said, I'm happy to sort of also hit a point that a question we've seen come up in the community around subpoenas. That is a scenario where potentially, someone comes directly to us to get access to certain information that would live within the product. I'll start by saying that the recording, it will never be subject to subpoena because it is immediately deleted upon the creation of the transcript. So that will never be subject to any sort of subpoena. With respect to the transcript, that is created and maintained for about, the sort of later of when you sign and lock the note or 7 days. There is an extremely rare situation that could potentially happen, very, very unlikely, that a subpoena comes in during that time period, in which case the transcript could be subject to that subpoena. However, the transcript today, as Tony mentioned, is deleted immediately upon the signing and locking of that note. And so we do recommend that you sign and lock that note as quickly as possible to reduce that risk.
Thanks, Allie. I'm going to share this next question just simply because I'm pretty sure we just answered this question. But just, Anne, we saw your question. Hopefully that gives you the information that you need about whether the transcripts are recoverable in the case of subpoenas and how to think about that. So hopefully that answers
Thanks,
your
Anne. I guess I read Anne's mind. Thanks for a great question.
Yeah. And then the next question is coming from Jasleen. And I'm going to share it here just a second. If the court subpoenas the transcript, how does it work then? I think we just answered that as well. So we're going to keep moving on, and we'll go to the next one. And this is from Dwight. Thanks for your question, Dwight. Will you be adding templates for notes to format into DAP versus SOAP, etc.? Jim, do you want to talk about that real quickly?
Yep, absolutely. And so the way that Note Taker works right now, if you use DAP or SOAP or really any other sort of template, Note Taker can work with that and generate notes in that particular format for you.
Great. All right, next up is, I think we've already addressed the AI notes fit the format of a customized note template. You talked a little bit about that, so I'm going to skip that one to make sure that we keep going and get to everyone's questions. Thank you for your question, Andrea. Next up is from Sherry, and Sherry asked, how do we explain this to clients to get their consent and buy-in? Dr. Lindsay, do you want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, absolutely. I already mentioned one that I do want to make sure to say that we will actually have a live stream coming up to talk specifically about this whole process. But just to address it a little bit right now, what I would say is it's really important that we start with some transparency with our clients, why we are using it, what benefit it brings, even if that benefit is to you directly as the clinician, to be able to be clear to answer their concerns that may very well come up about things about privacy and all these questions that are being asked today. Clients may hold some of those same questions. So being able to be prepared what some of those answers are. Also, as was already mentioned by Allie, in many states, not all, there are requirements, of course, for consent for two-party consent for recording. In that, you do need a signed consent. But again, when we're talking about AI in particular, I think those initial steps, we can follow those same conversations we would with recording before for that signed piece. For AI, it's being able to make sure you have the knowledge. And part of that is, I think, the ethics of all of this does go back to us seeking the knowledge we need to hold about AI and how the tools we use work to be able to answer them. We do have some links. We have a Pollen article that can give you some of those answers. We, again, will be hosting more conversations because obviously this is a big thing that we need to do. And I know many people have had quite a bit of success having these conversations with clients, but we will continue to give you more tools and more depth to be able to answer that.
Thanks, Lindsay. Next up is from Bryn. Can we record in-person sessions so we can use Note Taker for those as well? Jim, you touched on this, but it's maybe a real quick refresher.
Yep, absolutely. So now on your mobile device using the SimplePractice Clinician app, you can record in-person sessions.
And that is the one with the yellow icon. So I've noted people clarifying that. So please go and grab that if you don't have it. And that's the way to get to that. Next up is from Beth. Beth asks, is there a plan for Note Taker to support assessment and treatment plan writing?
Yes, both of these absolutely are things that we're exploring. And so more to come on that in a future live stream, I'm sure.
So on our radar. Thanks, Beth. The next up is from Dorothy, who is asking a very similar question about treatment plans, asking for specific dates, but I think we just answered that as best we can right now. So appreciate your question, Dorothy. Next up is from Alicia, who asks, could the clinician provide a verbal summary of the session to the note taker and have it spit out a note that way, altogether avoiding recording the session? I believe we just talked about dictation, but do you want to touch on that real quickly?
Yeah, so dictation will be a feature that is specifically developed and optimized for this workflow that Alicia is describing here. Now, I will say I have at least one clinician that I talk to pretty frequently that has tested this out on his own, currently just using telehealth or the in-person piece with mixed results. Because again, it hasn't been developed for that specifically yet, but some success using Note Taker that way currently.
Got it. Thanks. All right. Next up comes from Caroline, who asks, what companies outside of SimplePractice have access to the data and trends gathered by this tool? Tony, do you want to address that? And or Ali, you can feel free to address it as well.
Sure, Doug. I'll jump in. Where the data, the answer is pretty clear. No one outside of our hosting infrastructure stack. Obviously, we don't build and host everything ourselves, but those are all HIPAA compliant and within our secure environment. I think the trends might be a harder question for me to answer. Nobody today, for sure. I don't know what we're going to gather there, but I mean, I feel like aggregated data potentially, but there would be non-identifiable. It would be aggregated data. When you say trends, I think about summaries across a wide body of data. Ali?
No, nothing specific to add to this other than just to add that, because we are HIPAA compliant, in the event we ever share data with a third party, we would do so just in order to perform the services better that we perform to you. So the third party might only temporarily have access to your data, but under both HIPAA and contractually, we would restrict that third party from being able to use the data for any reason other than to perform the services. And they would be subject to the same strict privacy and security regulations and commitments that we hold ourselves to.
Thanks, Ali. I just want to acknowledge that it is noon on the West Coast. We've been here for an hour. We still have some questions, and we, of course, want to stick around and answer those. So we'll keep answering some questions, but we know that you all are very busy, and we just want to take this moment to say thank you for spending your time with us. You're welcome to stick around, and we will continue to try to get through these questions until we've kind of exhausted most of the discussion. But again, thank you so much for being with us. If you have other questions, please never hesitate to reach out. There have been a lot of how-to questions in the chat. So I really encourage you to attend the live Q&A session with our customer success team on Wednesday. That is weekly, so you can come back to it whenever and however you want. There's also a lot of resources on our website, and there's a lot of resources in the Docs tab here. And always come back and visit us on live streams in future moments as well. But again, thank you very much for spending your time. Hopefully this was helpful for you. And as I mentioned, we will continue to stick around and answer some more questions here because there's a lot of really great questions that are coming up. So if you can stick around, please do. Otherwise, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you and everything you do. And we're honored to get to work with you. So, okay, we're going to get back into Q&A here. Here we go. Next up is from Sophia, who asks, some of my clients have expressed concern about the potential carbon footprint or environmental impact of using the AI Note Taker. How do I address these concerns? But Tony, Jim, do you want to talk a little bit about how we've approached this and our perspective on it?
Yeah, I can start us off. Jim, feel free to jump in. I first of all, I think recognize the fact that AI, especially large language models, they use a lot of electricity, and that generates a lot of carbon. And so they are not great for our environment. I think acknowledging that that's the reality today. But I think there are a couple of things to point out here. One is that the vast majority of that electricity is used during the training phase. So if you can believe sort of in kind of a sunk cost sort of thing, we don't train, like we said earlier. So these models, these foundational models that we use are already trained. And so we're just kind of taking the fruits of that sunk cost already. It's not a great story, but I think it is true. We're not causing any training to happen. The second thing, and this goes back to the reason why I mentioned Anthropic and Claude specifically, is that one of the reasons we do like them, and not the only reason I will say, but one of the reasons we like them is that out of all the big vendors, I believe they are the most environmentally respectful, and they're consciously trying to minimize the impact while recognizing that it is very impactful. One of the things they are doing is they are buying carbon offsets for everything they're using. So, I mean, that's not as good as not creating the carbon, but at least they're trying to offset it as best as they can while looking for other reductions. So we are trying to be respectful of this, but the technology itself does use a lot of electricity today, and that electricity is generated using processes that generate a lot of carbon today.
Jim, you have anything you want to add there, or is that gonna?
No, Tony,
that's pretty
good.
Yeah. So thank you for your question, Sophia. It's an important question, one that we're going to continue to monitor and try to stay at the forefront of as best we can. All right, next up is from Wallace. Wallace asks, I use an EMDR note. Will the AI learn my EMDR note and start modeling my note style, or just use a SOAP note? Jim, you talked about this a little bit, but maybe you can speak specifically here.
Yep, definitely. If you use an EMDR Note Taker will work by replicating that for future sessions as well.
Great. Next up is from Tyler, who asks, if using this approach for notes, would there need to be special documentation to inform the client that the sessions are being recorded for note taking, or would they be recorded in a way where this would not be necessary? Ali, you touched on this, so I think we've probably addressed this a little bit, but just a very quick summary maybe just before we move on from this.
Yeah, really quickly, it does depend on your state and the state law that governs recording in your state. And so if you are in a state that does require an all-party recording consent, you do need to seek consent from your client in order to be recorded.
All right, and next up comes from Samuel, who asks, talk about two voices, couples counseling. We can interpret that. And Jim, I think it would probably be great for you to talk a little bit about how the product handles that today, and anything we've got coming forward.
Yep, definitely. So Note Taker will work for couples counseling, group sessions, family appointments. Multiple speakers will show up in the transcript as unique speakers. And again, that transcript is available for you to view. And the note will address sort of each participant's participation in the session as well. And so, yeah, the answer is yes to this.
Yeah, so it does do a job of parsing through the different voices that are present and making sense of that. That's great. The next question is from Vilma, which is, can I dictate a note and AI will transcribe it? I think we've addressed that, Vilma, but please let us know in the chat if we haven't. Following up on that is from Megan, who asks, how are insurance companies reacting to AI notes? Is it changing the amount of audits? Ali, I'm going to throw this one to you. I'm not sure what the answer is on the amount of audits. That's an interesting question, but have at it.
Yeah, it is an interesting question. I actually am not sure I have the answer either yet, because this is really a rapidly evolving landscape that we're seeing here. I can say, and Jim should jump in here too, but that our product was built to try to incorporate requirements that all of the major insurance companies are looking for within the note that you're submitting associated with the claim. And so our goal here really is to make sure that we're required, you are obviously required to check the accuracy of the note and make sure it has all the requirements under your specific payer contracts. But our goal is to capture as much of that as we possibly can, of hopefully avoiding audits. But Jim, if I missed anything, jump in.
No, I think Note Taker will try its best to adhere to those insurance requirements, but because there are so many insurance providers, so many variations to what those requirements might be, like Ali mentioned, it's, probably best practice to review that and just make sure everything is required and as it should be. But Note Taker will try to adhere to those insurance requirements.
And I'll just add one extra piece, which was, I'm guessing a little of the question behind the question could be, obviously, notes do get audited for things like cloning and concerns that things may look too consistent. It's not one other thing that I would add, just if this was part of it, is because these notes are actually so personal, because those details can be caught so thoroughly, kind of like how Aaron had shared with us in his own experience. It kind of keeps that accuracy. In many ways, it is keeping a very accurate note in ways that we may not always, I know I was not always able to do. And again, the point still being that it requires your sign off, it requires your review. Our product requires you to review and sign off on that. So that really does help on some of those other pieces that you may be having concerns with, that there really is accuracy. There's not cloning, right? It really is personalizing it to each session, to each client.
Thank you to all of you for that. The next question is from Amelia, who asks, is it just notes, or does the AI Note Taker generate a draft of the biopsychosocial as well? Dr. Lindsay and Jim, if you could comment on this.
Yeah, for intake appointments, Note Taker will provide the biopsychosocial assessment along with a SOAP note with that for intake appointments. Great.
Covers it, takes a big pain off, right? Those biopsychosocials are the big ones to write. So Jim covered it, but it's a big relief, I think, as a clinician myself.
Great. All right. Here's one from Dr. Jennifer Andrews, who says, Note Taker has been inconsistent and unreliable for me when it comes to drafting a note. Sometimes it will draft a note with all relevant sections of the standard note, and other times it will not and draft only one section. Clinicians, have you been experiencing this problem too? What can be done about this to make it more reliable, especially if we'll be paying extra for this feature? I need to make sure it works well. Well, we have a clinician on this call here, and that would be great to be able to get their perspective on any inconsistency that they've experienced with the product. So I don't know if we could bring Dr. Weiner back up on stage, but that would be really great. And Dr. Lindsay, maybe you could comment in the meantime while we get Dr. Weiner on stage about any considerations here. Jim, you might have something you might want to add here as well.
I actually, before Aaron joins, I think Jim might be able to speak a little bit more to because it's able to look back and personalize in those pieces. I'm guessing there could be something in there, and it is continuing to be refined. So Jim, you might be the best first touch on that.
And it sounds like you might be, Lindsay, because you nailed it. Yeah, because Note Taker is looking back at previous notes, if you're noticing that certain sections that you would otherwise expect to be there, I would recommend going back, looking at the note that Note Taker referenced, and then, like we showed in the demo, you can make any of those changes to the current session note so that Note Taker will incorporate all of that going forward and, continue to adapt to your changing writing style.
Yeah. Dr. Weiner, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts or comments on this, just in terms of how your use of Note Taker has evolved and any tactics that you might have taken to try to make sure that it was providing as reliable an output as possible.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I guess to answer the question directly, I have noticed it, but I wouldn't characterize it as inconsistent and unreliable. I'd say it's been rare. There have been times where I've noticed that, and that's because I am going through and checking the output to make sure that it looks the way that I want it to look. I think that when it's missed something, it's usually been just again, my own personal experience has been, I use SOAP notes. So it's been like the entire plan section hasn't been there. And so I'll write that myself. I'll put that in there. And then the next time it rolls around, it is there. It's one of those things where I know, like this, it is still a newly released product and the support is excellent. I can just, I'm not just saying that because I'm on the live stream, they really care about the product. They're working to develop it and to improve it. And I think anytime you take on a new technology, there are going to be little glitches here and there. But that's why, it's like most cars these days, right? You still have to keep your hands on the wheel, even if there are smart features that try to drive a little bit for you. The human is still required. The clinician is still required. And I'd say that, like, for me, 95 to 98% of the time, there's only tiny tweaks. It's not like there's something major that needs to be changed. It's just those rare instances where then, you shore it up and it works out okay. But that's my 2 cents.
That analogy about the car is really apt. I think that's just a perfect analogy. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, the next question is coming from Asya. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly there. Will this feature be at additional cost to users? Alan, all right. If you would like to take the answer to that, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. A brass tacks question. Love it. So one thing we believe is that there's an incredible amount of value coming from this type of tool and this type of technology for clinicians. So one of our goals was to make it accessible to as many clinicians who wanted to try it. And on the other hand, we also need to balance that with a lot of the feedback that we got from many of you, which was you wanted these features to be optional for your plan. So the overall cost of the plan doesn't increase. And that's mainly because there's some pretty high costs still associated with this type of technology around transcription or summarization, for example. And so with those two things in mind, your feedback, as well as us figuring out a way to price this competitively and fairly, we've made Note Taker available as an optional add-on to all the plans. And so if you're on Starter, Essentials, or Plus, you can go ahead and enable it on your own if you'd like to use it. And we've also made it available as a free trial. So you get through 30 days of a free trial to see if that actually fits into your workflow, and you can kind of get your hands on it, see if it works out for you. And then after that, if you decide to actually keep using it, again, up to you, it's $35 per month per clinician, and you can cancel that anytime. So there's no long-term commitment there. You get to try it early on, and we want to make sure that if you're really interested in it, it's an optional add-on for you to take advantage of.
And are there
Can
any
I give my two?
Sorry.
Can I give my 2 cents as a subscriber?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah, so I just want to put out there, when you ask yourself about the price, like, think about what your time is worth. Like, what do you charge hourly? And then how much time you may, like, even 1 hour of your time, I have a feeling, is probably worth more than $35. And if it saved you that much, even just the time, not to mention the stress, per month. For me, it's a no-brainer and absolutely worth it in terms of the time savings and just the emotional difference in the experience. But I think the fact that there's a free trial kind of is the icing on the cake, right? You can give it a test drive, if you want to stick with the car analogy, see how it feels, and if you like it, you can keep going. And if not, you don't.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. And then, Alan, just really quickly, was there any group pricing or anything like that we want to talk about?
Yeah, so right now, any clinician that's part of a group can ask the account owner or the practice owner to enable Note Taker for them. We don't have any special pricing for groups at this time, but it's definitely something that we want to continue to explore as we think about enabling this for as many clinicians as possible, and as we see just the continued success here and making sure that we can open it up to as many folks as possible. So nothing right now, but you can ask your account owner or the practice owner to enable it for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Kirsten asks, why can't we record on our laptop? Is this a tech issue or something else? Jim, would you mind taking that?
Yeah, sure. It's not a tech issue. Our first foray into the in-person recording was as planned on mobile devices. And so we didn't enable that on laptops or desktops just yet, but as part of the dictation work that I spoke about that'll be coming soon, that essentially enables in-person recording then from any device, including laptops.
Great. Thank you. The next question comes from Thomas, who asks, can the Note Taker do intake assessments, take more in-depth note? We talked a little bit about this, but Jim, do you want to just touch on that real quick?
Yes, so Note Taker can do intake. Well, it can generate intake progress notes, not necessarily an intake assessment yet, but in regards to assessments and sort of helping to complete those, it is something that we are looking at doing potentially in the future.
All right. Next question is around subpoenas. How does that work then? Jesleen, I think we've answered this question, so I'm going to skip it for now. But if not, this recording will be sent out to everyone who's attended, and you certainly can go back. There's a fairly lengthy answer on that. The next question is from Andrea, who asked, will this work with customized note templates? I believe we've already answered that as well. Then the question from Isabella about an option for volume based for, we have 20 practitioners. Is it $35 each? The answer is as of now, yes. Alan just answered that. So hopefully, Isabella, that gets you what you were looking for there. Okay, let's see here. This is from Shelly, and Shelly asks, if you're doing back-to-back sessions, does it hold your recording so you can start another recording, or do you have to finish dealing with the recording before you can start the next recording? Jim, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely realize that many folks are in back-to-back sessions, and there is no limitation there. We don't want to block you from being able to do that successfully. And so as soon as you are ending one session and one recording ends, you can run another one immediately after that. There's nothing else you need to do.
Awesome. Thank you. The next, I'm trying to go here to try to get through all the 10 votes that have at least 10 votes, upvotes, and we'll see if we can do that. Again, want to be respectful of everyone's time. Okay, next up is Anitra. Anitra asked, how does the transcript work with modalities like EMDR, where there's little to quote unquote hear? You talked a little about EMDR, but Jim, do you want to talk about this as a concept?
Yeah, there are several sort of modalities that don't rely as much on speech, and so I think it would be expected that there may be some limitations with a purely audio-based recording that you may see with especially certain like play therapies and certain versions of speech therapy that could be impacted by this audio only. I don't want to call it limitation necessarily, but we are dealing with recorded audio only. So keep that in mind.
Okay, and next comes from Jennifer, who's asking, I'm wondering how long it will take for the Note Taker feature to learn. The quality of the notes created is varied widely, and most are incomplete. We talked a little bit about this. Is there anything, but you want to talk a little bit about the timeline, or the number of sessions, things like that?
Yep. So there's not really a timeline. It's really dependent on if you have a previous note for that client or not, and Note Taker will reference that. And so like I had mentioned, just take a look at how your previous note was and make any updates to that current session, and Note Taker will carry those changes forward.
Hey, Doug, can I jump in here also for a second?
Absolutely. Please, Tony.
Yeah, I just want to be clear about learning, because as I said before, we have our own private copy of the large language model that's not getting trained. So it's not learning in the sense of there's an AI learning. What is happening, though, is, of course, the context that it's being given to generate the note out of is changing. If you change past notes, it's going to see something different, and it's going to produce a different result. But so it may seem like it will be improving in what it's giving you, but it's not actually learning anything. We're just giving it better context. And so I just want to be clear about that. It's a detail, but I think it's important to think about what we're doing.
Appreciate that. Thanks for the clarification. The next question is from Melissa. It's very long. It can be kept on the screen, so that's good. Okay. It says, I recently attended an ethics talk with the Pennsylvania Psychological Association, during which the speakers were very negative about using AI technology for note taking. One thing they said was, quote, You better know where the recording is being stored because the buck stops with you, end quote. I understand that the recording is deleted as soon as the note is created, I think is what you probably intended there. However, for the brief period of time the recording is stored, where is it? Put another way, if I were to write a sentence in a consent form for recording and using AI, I might want to say something like, the SimplePractice AI Note Taker stores the recording of your session on an internal server until the note is generated, at which point the recording is deleted. All aspects of SimplePractice, including the storage of the recording, are HIPAA compliant. The recordings note and what AI learned by writing the note are not shared with the company who developed the AI. SimplePractice AI tool is HITRUST certified. HITRUST is a comprehensive and certifiable security framework used by healthcare organizations and their business associates to efficiently approach regulatory compliance and risk management, end quote. Is this accurate? First of all, we have open positions in our marketing department for copywriting. So if you would Allie, maybe you could take a crack at the accuracy of that statement and other considerations around this.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that statement, by the way. That was very well written and stated. I don't have the full statement in front of me, so I was trying hard to listen, so it's hard for me to say like exactly 100% that's accurate. But what I can say, and Jim should definitely jump in on the exact timing, but the period of time during which the transcript is being recorded the transcript is being created and the recording is still there is very short. I think it's something around, Jim, you said like 3 to 5 minutes. Is that right? Okay, like he's nodding yes, 3 to 5 minutes, at which point it is deleted. So I cannot see any world in which the recording itself would ever be available to anyone else or anything during a 3 to 5 minute period. So please rest assured that recording is deleted very, very promptly.
Great. Thank you for that very thoughtful question, Melissa. Okay, we are really running up against time. The live streaming tool that we use allows for 90-minute live streams. We're already 25 minutes over, so we have time for probably one more question here, and then we will wrap things up. But again, thank you for your time. So here's the next question is from Denise, who asks, how long is the recording kept? I think we've answered that probably. And so we might just, I think actually as I'm sort of scrolling down here in the questions, it actually looks like most of these questions have been answered in one form or another at this point. So I guess this is probably a natural stopping point, and I will take it. Again, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you, Dr. Weiner, for joining us and sharing your perspective. It was really great to hear that. Very, very helpful. I will again direct all of our viewers to the Docs tab. There's a lot of great information in there. We will send out this recording of this session to everyone via email. It's chapterized, so you can quickly get to different pieces of information that are relevant for you. There's an FAQ in the Docs here. There are Q&A live classes weekly that our customer success team hosts. I encourage you to attend those to learn a little bit more about how to use the product and get it to work really well for you. We have upcoming live streams, one on the mobile app, which will help explain what's going on there and how to use Note Taker within that. There's also a free CE course. And I could keep going for a long time here. We have a bunch of upcoming live streams. There's one on August 13th that's coming up. All of these things are available to you. Please join. And we're trying to put it out there to help you take best advantage of this tool in a way that works for you ultimately, because you are in control, and that's the way we want it to be. So again, thank you everyone for your time. If you have any questions, please never hesitate to reach out to us. Our customer success team is always available to you. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you again for your time. And thank you again, panelists, for your time as well. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you later.